Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Hello, and welcome back to the Mission Accepted podcast show. Let's see, what am I going to call you today? I'm going to call you the best audience ever. I don't know what group in Ecuador is rocking out with Mission Accepted, but I just want to do a shout out. We're hitting the airwaves in Ecuador extremely well. So someone out there loves this. So we want to just do a shout out to that. And not only you guys, the best podcast audience, and I can say that no matter who's sitting on the other side, even if they're a podcast host, is you guys are also the most intuitive. And lucky you, because we also have a guest that's also very intuitive. So I just want to tell you that today's class or session or information or interview is going to be very creative. Okay, so we have what I call an entrepreneur, and you guys know what an entrepreneur is. It's an entrepreneur that can't say no. But for someone like myself and Jennifer, who play in the world of holistics, also an entrepreneur in this field can be someone that just keeps saying yes to the guided, yes to the intuition. And that's what we hope that you guys get inspired with today, is that if you've got something screaming at you, or you got something really, really, really softly going, maybe, or why do I keep thinking I need to call him? Or why do I think I need to call her? Why every time do I go on to something, whatever, social media, I keep seeing this class for creative writing? What's that about? Do you know what I mean? So you're going to get a double dose of that today, because when you have someone who's as creative and entrepreneur-minded as Jennifer is, then you add that holistic piece. Well, this woman does many different things. So she plays in the holistic world, and you will know her all over social media as the Sagittarius Coach. Now, when I saw that, you guys know I'm a Sag. So I was like, ooh, there's a sister. And I didn't care if we just, had a cup of tea over Zoom. I was like, I just got to meet someone who's brave enough to call him a Sag Coach, because if you have ever had a Sag in your life, they're not quiet. So we had a great conversation. I was like, oh man, you got to come on the show, because not only does she coach, and not only does she does mediumship, and she does spiritual healing and all of that, she's got an incredible story. And we're so excited for her, because she has just hit the airwaves on, well, is it the airwaves, the page waves, the readership waves on Amazon with this incredible book. So I'm not going to talk anymore about her. She's going to talk about herself. Jennifer, welcome to Mission Accepted.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me here, Deborah. It's so excited. I'm so excited to be here. And hello, awesome. Everybody.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for saying hi to the audience. So Jennifer, we talk here on the show about, accepting the mission, taking it on and seeing where that goes. And some days not wanting to, but putting your feet on the ground anyways. And so in your opinion, who's someone who's done, multiple things within that same sphere, maybe you share a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur, but what makes you stay being an entrepreneur? Like, what do you do in the tough times?
That's a really good question too. So the tough times, well, actually what started the whole entrepreneurship for me is it actually runs in my blood. So I actually come from a whole family line of entrepreneurs. So even as a young child, I was already starting my entrepreneurship. So when I was about 10, 11 years old, just to date me here, I actually had an idea to perform for the entire neighborhood and dance to Madonna and charge admission. So that's exactly what I did. So we're talking, 80s, and I was charging $10 per ticket. So woo! I had a pretty good business rocking at that time. So that planted the seed because I saw how fun it was and how rewarding it was to have my own business as a child. So fast forward, that never left me. And then for over 20 years, I was in management, always working for other people. And that also planted a seed because I had some good experiences, but I had some not good experiences where I was working for business owners that didn't know how to be a business owner. And little did I know that planted one of the biggest seeds. So then I decided to become my own boss full time. And that was the biggest motivator. And then what's helped me go through the difficult times is literally seeing how my clients' lives have changed for the better. So that is what actually helps motivate me when, let's say, I'm working a 12-hour day for myself and I'm completely exhausted and I can barely keep my eyelids open. That's what motivates me through those tough times, that this is so worth it when I'm able to see people's lives completely transformed for the better.
Well, that's it, right? I think that, there's many different things, when you're in that stage of your business, whether it's the beginning stage or you decide to go into growth, right? Like you just added this book project or you start, and people forget that when you take on a project or you expand, you're back in build. You're almost back in that beginning where that's a creative piece and adding it to the social media crew and or you might have to hire somebody and you're back in those maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-hour days, or you're working through the weekend, but you know that at the end of the day, whatever your passion, whatever your motivation is, right? I mean, a lot of times we get lost as we get kind of going, and we've been going around for a while, but it's when, you have that result, when someone sends you that thank you text, when you see someone have an experience with your product or your service, that you are, and what I say, kind of leaving business legacy, whether, yesterday I was on a video shoot with my son and he's like 19 and they're like, what up, like kind of like this, right? And he's like, they're
awesome.
like, why would you pick the name called Natsukashi? And he's like, oh, because it means nostalgia and good feelings. And I want people to feel good when they wear my clothes. It's like there's, when there's at the heart of the matter, and that kind of, and he goes, and it kind of feels cool. So for us, and I think that's the heart of an entrepreneur, or at the basis is that I know this can help somebody. I know that this can build community. I know that this would, and also, take care of their family and the legacy of that leaves as well. Right. And so, there's something to be said, even if you're kind of doing your business off the side of your desk, you're just doing something in the, a few hours a week or something. That I always say it's important to remember while you're building someone else's dream to build yours as well, whatever that looks like. Right.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree, hands down.
Yeah. Okay, girl, tell us. I know that you've got an incredible story about this book, and I can't wait. I can't wait for everyone else to know what I know.
Okay. Well, thank you. So back in 2019, so just to give a little quick story, if people haven't heard my story about my dad and I. So my dad actually had dementia. And so from 2017 to 2019, I was not able to even have a conversation with him at all. It was literally like a movie loop. So he would literally, it was almost like I had lines and I knew exactly what I had to say after he said one sentence. It was the same conversation every Saturday that I saw him. So if you could call it a conversation. So he would say a sentence and it was the exact same sentence. And then I knew exactly what my next line was. And there we go. And then it would repeat again the following Saturday, exact same thing. So I missed my dad. We used to talk about everything, and he was an entrepreneur as well. So we used to talk about business. We used to talk so much about life. We used to talk about science. We loved everything to do with the brain. We used to talk about the brain a lot. We used to talk about intuition and spiritual and ever after, the hereafter. And we used to talk about that a lot. And so I missed him terribly. And then in May 2019, he started his decline and rapid decline. And then he passed in June 2019. But before he passed, the very last week of his life, he had actually no dementia. There was not an ounce of it whatsoever. And he was crystal clear. He was able to have full conversations with myself, my mom, and my middle son. And I had my dad back for the last page in his chapter in his life. And so for the last 4 days of his life, I actually audio recorded him. And then he explains to my son, Matt, and I how it was for him actually having dementia. So as of now, I have not read or heard anything like it except what my dad has shared. And my dad described it as it was the other person. He was telling my son, Matt, that he could hear the other person saying the awful things that they were saying to me, and he had no control over it. So for me, it was completely life-changing in that moment for him to share that.
Sorry, a little delay there. They're doing some drilling in the studio, so I'm turning my audio on and off. I mean, that's profound, right? That's profound. To be able to have someone have that experience. I mean, I'm sure that it's, I don't want to say the word alarming, but it would be like jolting to someone who's had that experience to know that, maybe their person as well was having that inner struggle, right? I mean, who knows, who can tell?
Yes.
I know that you've talked to professionals and that has happened, but not for that length of time, that there is people that have had that experience, maybe a day, maybe two, maybe 24, 48 hours, where they're able to come back. And I think that's a really interesting piece for people that have never even experienced dementia or Alzheimer's in their family to go, wow, that there's like, because you're like, oh man, I've lost my dad. You said, I've lost my dad, but really they're there. They just, it sounds like there's like this veil. And it's it's a mind blowing concept to understand that may very well be going on.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, because I've spoken to different people in the Alzheimer's and dementia community and support systems and education systems. And I have heard from them as well that they have never seen anything like it. Just like you said, it's usually just a minute or a couple minutes prior to their passing, right before they pass, but that's it. But apparently, from the people that I've spoken to, there's no documentation anywhere, including from their understanding in the medical journals, where this is actually documented as a medical finding for that length of time. Right. So pretty amazing that my dad was able to do that.
Now, what is this your first book? Is this the first time you've taken a book to market?
It's my first solo book. So I've actually been part of 2 different co-author books, but this is my first solo book. Yes.
I love hearing that, because I mean, we put books together that are collaborative. And I always say to people, I think it's a good experience to play in a cooperative book first, to get your feet wet, because there is something very much about authoring. We were having a conversation the other day about tattoos, and I go, they're like, tattoos are addictive. And I'm like, so's writing. Writing. It's like when you're in a book with this collaborative and then you go, and then I'm like, you just want to keep writing more and more. So anyways, some people may think that's a really weird thing to say about tattoos and writing, but it kind of works that way, I think. But, so you've got your feet wet, and then, right. So now that's an interesting decision. Did you go through an interesting process? I was at a 3-day workshop with Cheryl Strayed, who, if people don't know, she wrote the book Wild that Reese Witherspoon did the movie. And of course, she opened up questions on the last day. And one of the questions that she asked, or one of the questions that got asked to her, which I'm sure half the room was asking, is, when do you make that decision? How do you make that decision to write something that's personal, or could upset family members, could upset friends, could upset people that, do I change the names? Do I change my name? I know a woman who wrote her story, and she changed her name to not upset her family. And then she did a rewrite years later and put her own name. But did you have any of that inner dialogue go on about should I, shouldn't I?
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And that's interesting that you brought up about the change of the names too. So for myself personally, I didn't change my name, but I did change a couple people's names, but they're not family members. So just out of protection for them as well. So one thing for your viewers, you already know because you're a Sagittarius, so this kind of answers your question in a second. So Sagittarians are actually known as truth seekers, and we speak the truth. Lies, falsehood does not go hand in hand with a Sagittarius. We're known for being very direct, and we get to the core and we speak the truth. So my book definitely reflects how I am. So it's all truth and it's all out there. So to be honest, I wasn't concerned about my family, about how they would actually receive the book. I was concerned about other people that are not family members, how they would actually receive the book, because the truth is laid out there in black and white. Or in this case, color photos and color in the book, but it's laid out there for. So I was a bit nervous at first, but actually, when I spoke with my dad on his last few days, he turned to my son Matt and he said, "Matt, I know your mom can write." And so my son says, "Yes, I do too." And my dad said to Matt how he wanted me to write a book. And I just happened to walk into the room right when this conversation was happening. So I made a promise to my dad that I would write a book. But in that moment, I had no idea what I was going to write about. But then when I actually started writing the book, it all made sense. That literally, and not to be a spoiler alert for people, but when you read the book, you'll see what I mean. Literally, things that occurred since I was a child all led up to actually the making of this book. And so I've literally intertwined the spiritual world as well as Alzheimer's and dementia, because in our story, that's how it actually mingled together. So it'll be interesting to hear what people have to say, but it's definitely all the truth, and it might be hard because it is brutal truth in some pages.
Right. So how did you work through that? Did you just, what made you finally brave and go, okay? Because obviously it was a process. You went back and forth. You clearly made a decision. And what was it that made you feel like you could make that decision? Just for people out there, and look, there's a lot of people, even just becoming an entrepreneur, when friends and family or community wanted something else, even becoming, we had a fantastic a guest. His name was Justin Saint, and he came from a very strict family, and he wanted to do voiceover acting, and he's a voiceover actor of a binary it's a binary animated character on Netflix.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So that was very difficult. Non-binary. Thank you. That was very difficult for his family, like really difficult for his family and what he went through. So even it can be a job, or it can be a role, or it can be, something that you do that people, are not going to. So how did you work that out before you, finally sent it off to the publisher?
Because I realized my dad used to actually wear a shirt that he created, and it said, let's make the world a better place. And he wore that shirt all the time. And I feel like he passed that torch on to me. So I realized this book was bigger than any concerns, any little inkling of fears that I might have had. This book was bigger than that, because the messages and the teachings that my dad had and has in this book was meant to be heard and to help people. And I realized that is what actually helped me take the leap of faith and get over whatever ego was telling me, like not to do it. Oh, you might ruffle some feathers. That pushed me through it, because I realized this is way bigger than me. And this is my dad's messages are meant to help people and families. And that was actually one of the things that he actually says on the recording. He goes, "Jennifer, they're using me. They're using me. They're using me to share." And then I heard message. So that is what motivated me to push through it.
Wow, that's incredible. It's incredible. I think it was just a interesting thing to unpack, because many people, we don't really get to dig down into those. A lot of people author books, and by nature, they are what they are, but they don't. There's those books that don't get written because of that one thing. Like I know one author that waited until her mother passed, and you know what? That's cool. If that's what that's what you got to do, and then what you got to do. But I think the more that people share or have the message to share or feel like it's the time to share. However they share that message and however they console that within themselves is and just important to recognize when you're writing a book, because, when you're writing a book, it's like, it's not like standing on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, now when we stand on stage and we do this this podcast will be, on the cloud forever. And these things that we do, I tell my son that social media is forever, right? Imagine, right. I'm sure Jennifer, as a sister Sag, there's things that we did, had we known people were videoing, we might not have done it when we were younger, but there's this foreverness. But in a book, it really, it really does. It is part of legacy. It does stay with you, and people can buy that book, forever. So let's just keep it down. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Sagittarius coach. So I can hear people right now because that's what happens. So do you only coach Sagittarians? What do you coach on? Like, what? That's not fair. We're in the club. We're in the club. Okay, so what do you coach on, my friend?
Okay, so great news for everybody that's listening. So even though I'm a Sagittarius and I call myself the Sagittarius coach, I actually literally have clients of all astrological signs. So I have a lot of Virgos, Capricorns, Aries, Aquarius, you name it. So the Sagittarius coach, the reason why I nickname myself that is because my personal coaching style is not just to help people, but sometimes to hear the truth that they might not have anticipated or wanted to face in the mirror. But I help them with the truth in such a way that it helps them heal and then helps them to really transform and push through that. So that's why I call myself the Sagittarius coach, because I have learned and even experienced as a client myself, where some coaches have, for whatever reason, know something, want to share something, but they hold back. They hold back. And so even when I do readings for people, the same thing, I have the same belief that when we receive messages, when we receive guidance, we are meant to share it with our client, not to hold back and edit and delete, because that doesn't help them or ourselves at all. Because how I look at it is when we edit and delete, we're actually, in a sense, not being truthful. So, and I'm all about the truth. So the Sagittarius coach, as I nickname myself, I help people not just as a life coach, but also I'm certified as an intuitive coach. I'm also an intuitive teacher. So I actually help people also with their spiritual practices and non-spiritual practices and businesses. So thanks to technology, I actually help people worldwide, which I'm so thankful. If it wasn't for technology, I wouldn't be able to do that. And one thing too, Deborah, I don't know if I've told you, is back in 2019, May 2019, I actually flew out to New York, and I actually was trained and certified by Dr. Brian Weiss. Absolute amazing man. He's been on Oprah many times. He's an absolute sweetheart. So I was actually trained and certified by him personally in past life regression. So part of my practice, I actually help people uncover the puzzle pieces from the past that actually helps heal in present life. And that's one of my biggest passions as well. So
it's interesting. So first of all, I love that I'm a Sag, so obviously I'm like, having, super fun over here. And you talk about, being a truth seeker and kind of ripping off the Band-Aid. Like what I hear as a Sag when you talk, you're like, kind of rip off the Band-Aid. So when you look on my desk, and you obviously can't see it, you guys, but you look on my desk and there's a Janis Joplin, and there's a Janis Joplin album behind me and a Janis Joplin poster. And I've had many people go, you're kind of like Janis Joplin. And I was like, yeah, it's like, here it is. This is the way it is. This is what I see. You could spend another 3 hours with me and I could get around to this nicely. But let's just get you where you want to go. And so that's why my coaching is top performance, and you're Sag, and that's friggin' hilarious. And I love it. Let's talk a little bit about that. So there's, many people be like, oh, past life regression. Oh, I mean, there's many roads to Rome. Oh, how many times have we heard that? But when you want to have change in your life, when you're looking for change, when you're looking for an understanding or patterns that keep happening or what have you, there's so many different ways to kind of go at it, right? And I think you need to go where you're resonated, or I always say, if it scares you a little bit, that's a good idea. It's like, ooh, top performance, what are you going to make me do? Ooh, past life regression, what am I going to hear? Ooh, if you got to, if you kind of, if you're kind of scared, but you lean in anyways, I think that's a clue. I think that's a clue.
Yes.
But let's unpack that a little bit, because for someone like me, holistic, I'm like, yeah, past life regression, I'm going to hear things. There might be patterns that I'm able to entwine and relate to, and that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to it. But when I go back to the first time I ever had a psychic experience internally, or then also went to a psychic, I remember walking in, I'm telling you, I was 20 something, mid 20s. And I had all these visions and blah, blah, blah. The first one I had, I was 8 years old. I wasn't telling anybody. I wasn't telling anybody except my Christian girlfriend. I'm like, can you help me? You know what I mean? So like, I was like, I didn't know what to do. And then my neighbor said to me, hey, my girlfriend gave me these 2 tickets to go see this psychic. Now, even though I was one, I was not willing to admit that to anyone else. Like, no, thanks. Right. And she's like, no, come on, come with me. And even myself, now we're talking 30 years ago. Okay. But even, there wasn't like movies about it or reality TV about it yet. But when I was like, I know. Right. So anyway, she talked me into it because, that's it. So I go, and I remember walking in, and, bless the woman, I'm not saying anything bad, but I walked in and she was wearing this dress. And the first thought in my head was like, ooh, that's not a good choice. Like, it was just this it looked like someone's curtains. I mean, what am I going to say? It had all these, like, I was just like, wow, that's an interesting choice. Right. And I literally thought, even though I wasn't intuitive and I can't read people's minds, I literally thought, oh my God, she knows what I'm thinking. So that story's coming to me for a reason, because there's someone out there that's listening to this that thinks, man, it would be scary to have someone know everything I'm thinking or all of who I am. But that's not the truth, right? I mean, that, first of all, you guys, that's not what's happened. And I sat down, and it was the interesting thing. She's like, I go, she goes, someone's a little psychic and they're having a problem with that. And I was like, oh God, do you know what I think about your dress? But anyway, so we got to explore that conversation. But talk to people a little bit. This is not, what normally people Google coaches and it comes off past life regression. So why would someone go for a past life regression to help maybe them in their business or in a decision?
So yes, that's a very good question and point. So just to go back to with telepathy. So telepathy is the power of reading another person's thoughts and mind. So just so you know, so even telepaths, if I can share, I think most telepaths would agree with me. It's not literally like Mel Gibson What Women Want movie. It's not like people are literally walking around and a telepath is like, I hear every single thought that a person's thinking. That's not how it works. And with me, and also what I've learned from the spiritual realm, when they share messages and guidance with me, it's important information that is going to help them. They never, ever, they're not spies in the spiritual realm. They're not spying on us and they're reporting to psychic and mediums. Guess what I found out? They're not like that. So they don't operate like that. So any messages that they're sharing with psychic and mediums is to help assist the person that is going to receive the message. And to go back with past life, and so just to recap on that, I'm getting a nudge to emphasize. So in other words, every single thought of yours is not going to be read by a psychic medium. They, as I said, they will only bring forward important information that is going to help with the session and help you with whatever is going on in your present life. So now to go back to the past life regression. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about past life regressions is I have seen the amazing healing and changes that have occurred because of past life regressions. So literally patterns, and that's awesome that you brought it up. So many patterns in present day right now actually has not occurred from this life. What I have actually uncovered is even relationship patterns often have been created many, many moons ago. And then we don't realize why we keep, for example, let's say somebody feels like they're always finding a person and a partner that needs great assistance, and they almost feel, quote unquote, like I'm a nurse, or I've had people say that more often than not, what I've seen, but obviously it's a case by case basis, more often than not, what I've seen is that actually stems back from the past. Even financial patterns also many times come back from the past. Even fears, for example, it's not a common knowledge, but with me, I love water, but I also have a very strong hate relationship for water. So I love water as long as I'm in control of it. If I'm underwater, I can't stand it. And so when I experienced a regression myself, I actually saw why I don't like being underwater. And it's unfortunately because people had control of me underwater. And let's just say it wasn't pretty. But the one thing with past life regressions, and I can't speak for other therapists, just myself, and that's why I love Dr. Brian Weiss' technique. That's why I went and only wanted to be trained by him, is because he teaches people, and this is my own words, teaches people to basically be in the driver's seat. And I am ensuring as a passenger that the person is feeling calm and safe and everything's cool, in other words. And so during the actual hypnosis part itself, they have a choice of either looking at their past like a movie, or they can actually be in it, feeling emotions and feelings like they are right there. They have a choice. And
Right.
That's why I learned from Dr. Brian Weiss, because the person actually has a choice. And to me, that was incredibly powerful. So that's why I learned that technique.
Wow, that's amazing. Lots of good stuff. Lots of really, really good stuff. And so I know we've got to wrap up a little bit soon. I'm just going to kind of divert a little bit. I'm going to let people digest that. And I'm going to ask you kind of, something just a little bit different. So for someone like yourself, you've just launched a book. You've obviously had a very interesting career. Maybe this is a business question, maybe this is a personal question, but I always believe in putting things out there. You never know who's listening, and let's try to make some impact here. So what is what's something that on your bucket list, something that you want to experience or accomplish or have? I mean, it could go anywhere from diamond earrings to speaking on stage somewhere, but so on your kind of private bucket list, what have you got going on?
A few things, but I'll give you my top three. So my top three is one, actually, I would love for, if it could be possible, for my dad's message to be shared worldwide, but it would honestly be a dream come true to have it turned into film. That would be absolutely amazing. So that would be my number one. My number two would actually be to speak worldwide. That is a dream come true for me to make happen. And three, which kind of connects with two, is I actually would love to travel worldwide. So I am a true Sagittarius, just like you. I always have the travel bug. I always mentally have my suitcase ready to go and my passport ready to go. And I love learning and connecting with people all over. And for everybody that reads my dad's book, you'll also learn I also got that from my dad as well. He wasn't a Sagittarius. He was actually a Gemini, but he loved traveling. So I've always been like that too.
All right. So thank you for that. Outside of that's out there in the universe now. And interesting. I mean, the book is called Pennies from Heaven, and that was one of the other things that me and Jennifer connected on. So, I'd had a different relationship with my father, and when I finally met my father, I was well into my teens, and he brought me a penny. And ironically, up to that date, I had collected pennies to the point of when I met him, I had something like 40,000 pennies. And this, I know they don't make them anymore, but I still have one jar left. And so that was very interesting. That was another thing that we connected on. And then, we know that when you find coins, like those are little drops from heaven. I think that Abundantia does some little dropping. And it's, when I used to find a penny, I used to think that my dad was kind of like, hey, because he's on the other side as well. And but lately, the last couple of years, he's been tossing dimes. I'm like, oh, good. So we're moving up. Good for you. Maybe they stop making pennies in heaven as well. I don't know. But something about you that we don't know, outside of your business, outside of that, something about you that we don't know, Jennifer. What would that be?
Oh, something that people don't know about me. Okay, this is something that people don't know about me. So I actually used to work in the vet field for years. I was actually a vet hospital manager. I actually trained different hospitals with management, etc. What people don't know about me is the reason why I left the vet field. I'm very passionate about the vet field. I still have a lot of connections in the vet field. It's an amazing and very powerful industry, and they help so many people. And I'm a huge animal lover, huge pet, always had pets. But what people don't know about me is the reason why I actually had to leave the vet field. It was one of the most heartbreaking decisions for me because I loved it so much. But literally what would happen is I would be in the exam room with clients because, as I said, I would be the hospital manager. I would help clients during different stages of their family upbringing with their pets. So what would happen is when it came time, unfortunately, for euthanasias, this is what was hard for me. Not only am I a very sensitive person, but I would, let's say, for example, Fluffy was being euthanized. Fluffy had cancer that was unfortunately inoperable. What I would see is Fluffy after Fluffy was euthanized. I would actually see Fluffy beside the owners. And that I obviously was out of respect for everybody. I would not share that I saw Fluffy right beside them, even though Fluffy is on
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that people don't know. I've actually had that since I was little. Not only have I been able to connect with loved ones in spirit, but also animals in spirit. So I've seen that since I was young. But that actually was the final piece for me that I knew that I needed to embrace my entrepreneurship and be able to share the messages that I was receiving in an environment that I was able to do so.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Well, you know what? It's time to let people know where to reach you and how to reach you. And then I have one final question for you. And I know that there'll be many times that you come back on. So do share, where can people reach out to you, Jennifer?
Okay, sounds great. So you can find me on social media as the Sagittarius Coach. So Facebook, Instagram as a Sagittarius Coach, TikTok, YouTube. And you can also, my website is www.net. So that actually is going to be up, very excited. It's actually going to be launching next week. And also you can email me at info@jenniferdawn.net.
Awesome. And that's also going to be in the show notes, and our listeners absolutely know that. Okay. So I have one last question to share with you. And that is, you're on your way to a desert island. You have one suitcase and you only have room for one album. What album would you take?
Oh, first one that I thought of instantly, George Michael, Faith.
All right. Oh, oh man, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Yes.
That's such upbeat music. I love George Michael.
Awesome. Oh, me too. He's amazing.
Awesome.
So
okay. You guys, we're going to be wrapping up the show here. And of course, if you want to be sitting where Jennifer's sitting, we would love to hear from you. You know how to reach out. deb@debdrummond.com. And I want to talk about something. So look, we are at a time of year where people are looking at what their next day planner is. And you guys, or if you don't know, I do want to share that we have now released the entrepreneurial planner for creatives. And that means you. So it is the best of what I say, Brendan Burchard and Brene Brown. It is the best of having the top performance results in your business and your personal life. We are so excited. We had 64 amazing people that want to inspire others, put in a beautiful QR code with incredible messages for you every Monday. There's, 5-year, 1 year reverse engineering. You will have results in your business and your life that will just surpass your dreams, because when you have a formula that works like that, and trust me, it's trust and true, then you start living what I call the cream of your life instead of the milk. And it doesn't take any extra effort to do it. So we're super excited that we've got that released. You can go to debdrummond.com. You can find it there, the Entrepreneur Planner. We also have the Success Tracker for those of you that have prospect businesses. So if you have lists on your phone and your email and your notes section and your text and your messenger and your Instagram and your desk and your business cards, we have a beautiful planner that you can put everything in there. It takes you through a beautiful profit calling follow-up system. That was the system that I personally use. I personally created that book. That was the book. That was the system that got me to #1 in 10 countries out of 150,000 people. And it's honestly just a really beautiful system. And I got the message, now that you guys know that, too, it's time to give it away. And that is also on Amazon. So if you want any of that, you know where to go. You want to reach out to Jennifer, you know where to go. Please share this episode, digest it, share it. We're so happy and we're so grateful that you participate as much as you do. And we are so excited to see you again next week. So until then, bye for now and be groovy.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Deb.